Wednesday, February the 4th, 2026. Good morning and welcome to your perfect day starter, the Morning Brief. I'm Kayode Okikulu.
And I'm Jeffrey Ozama.
I think we'll just start on this sober note. Yesterday, news broke the celebrated American Christian worship leader, singer, and songwriter Ron Kenoly passed away at the age of 81. This news was confirmed by Kenoly's longtime music director, Bruno Miranda, in a statement shared on his official Instagram page, revealing that he died on February the 3rd, though the cause of death was not disclosed. For a lot of Christians, not only in Nigeria and Africa and across the world, they will recall powerful worship songs written, performed time and again by Ron Kenoly, particularly those who also use the songs for choreography, you know, the young people. He will be sorely missed, definitely, but a lot of people take solace in the fact that he came, he saw, he delivered on his mandate. I saw Nathaniel Bassi, a lot of worship leaders in Nigeria yesterday putting out statements speaking about how he inspired and inspires them. So I think that is the solace for a lot of people.
Great man. Whenever people like this pass, they just say they were here. Ron Kenoly gave us loads and loads of worship songs, all the way from the 90s, and you can count on and on. And he's visited Nigeria. I think Nigeria should be one of his second homes. Literally, I have friends, a friend who is quite close to him. It was yesterday I learned about it. I think I was on social media, and I saw a post by Dunsin Yekon, where he was just celebrating the life of this wonderful worship leader. This is what it means to live, leaving your impact on the lives of a lot of people. Ron Kenoly has done his part, and he will be sorely missed. Our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts are with his family and everybody who is directly connected to him. For those of us who are indirectly connected to him through his music, we thank him for his service in the vineyard of the Lord, for what he's contributed to gospel music, national advancement, and you can go on and on. It's not just when you listen to the lyrics, beyond the Christian-based writing, there's also the national unity. There's also the humanity in him. So we thank him for, I know that if you want to talk about the number of songs this man has written, himself, Don Moen, and that generation, I could go on and on. And so it's an honor to have had him, known him, whether directly or indirectly. So we thank Ron Kenoly. He's done his time, his watch is ended, and we say thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So while we, of course, give you updates on what happens next after living such a glorious life, we bid farewell to Ron Kenoly at this moment. Let's come back home and take you to Nigeria's Senate, where quite a number of things happened yesterday. Or would I say some things also did not happen? We can tell you that the Electoral Act bill did not happen, in the sense that it remains inconclusive after a Senate closed-door session. Lasted for hours, right? There was a committee raised in the previous sitting, so there was a lot of expectation from Nigerians thinking, okay, we've come to this point where just about a year away from the 2027 general election. So if we're going to have any change in the law, which we all know that we need to have some of these things clearly stated, some tweaks here and there to ensure we have a better process. If we need to have that, then it must come right now or yesterday. But, well, the passage of the Electoral Act 2022 repeal and reenactment bill 2026 again remained inconclusive yesterday as the Senate stalled on a decision after spending over 4 hours considering the report of the 7-member ad hoc committee behind closed doors. So right now, this repeal and reenactment bill has not been passed clearly, and I wonder, will this mean a change, a possible change in the date of next year's general election? What is the plan exactly from Nigeria's Senate? I think at this moment we do not need any more confusion or uncertainty? Because the build-up is very high. I can tell you the stakes are really high. So the least you need right now is an uncertain law guarding the process of the electoral, selection process in Nigeria. Jeffrey.
We have an Electoral Act 2022, which we are trying to amend or repeal and reenact, which will be Electoral Act maybe 2026 or 2025, depending on what the legislators do. What I will appeal to the lawmakers, especially the Senate, which is the upper legislative chamber and the bicameral chamber of our National Assembly that we operate, is that lawmakers must try as much as possible to prioritize national interests over personal interests. There are a few beautiful things in this amendment or reenactment and repeal that is necessary. For instance, the transmission of votes from the polling unit straight to, the back end of INEC server, which we naturally will see at the beaver's end, where from there you get to see, so that we see clearly what everybody is doing, not like what had played out in the last election. In the 2023 election, there were some successes, there were some, failures, significant failures, and that is still being looked back at, and people are just wondering, okay, can we do better than this? The issue around penalty for electoral malpractice. I know there was an argument as to the effect that vote buying should be penalized, just like every other vote buying during the primaries. The politicians seem not to have agreed on that. The issue of maybe failure of beavers being a criminal offense because they want INEC to take a lot of responsibility is also a big issue. So there are so many issues that the framers and the writers and the advocates, just like every other Nigerian will want to see a better election management system. So I want to beg the political class, especially those in the National Assembly who are saddled with this responsibility, to do their best not to frustrate by whatever means this electoral act. Let them do their best to ensure that this electoral act is passed so that we'll be running the 2027 general elections with an electoral act, a new one that helps us to fine-tune, do better than what we did in 2023. It can keep getting better. So I don't know, maybe today is another legislative day. I don't know what it's going to be. I expect it to be a priority. Perhaps the only thing they should discuss, whatever it is they disagreed, which we have an idea of, they should find a middle ground somewhere, but it mustn't be at the interests of the political class. It must be for the interests of the entirety of the Nigerian population. Somebody was arguing with me that, she doesn't believe that. Not argue, just telling me she doesn't believe that the elections are really rigged and all of that. No, I said, I know how elections are rigged, and it's pretty simple. No matter how you perfect this system, the political class, some of them will always look for a way to undermine the system. Classic example, Kayode, is the fact that, for instance, if a polling unit has 1,000 registered voters, and on the day of accreditation and voting, they come and 700 are accredited, and a political party that has some muscle and all of that can choose to negotiate with the agents there and do whatever if the voters are not alert to say, let's share these votes. Because as soon as the beaver snaps it, that's it. So the rigging happens just before the beavers is used to snap the electoral results. So we all must be vigilant. Yeah. We all must be vigilant as a people. The political class, some of them don't mean well for Nigerians. Let's say that clearly from the beginning. So those who mean well among the political class, please rise to the occasion and fight for the people of Nigeria. Let's get this bill passed so that we can have, because what happens is that when they are amending and looking at these laws, they're always looking at, will this affect us negatively? Will this affect us positively?
While this didn't happen just yet on the floor of the Senate, talking about the Electoral Act repeal and reenactment bill, hopefully 2026, at least the Senate did speak about primary health care in Nigeria. But how far will that go? It's another thing entirely. So the Senate called on governments at all levels to urgently bridge critical gaps in emergency healthcare delivery by mandating minimum stocks of anti-venom and other life-saving antidotes in hospitals across of the country. This follows the sad death of Ifunanya Nwagene in the nation's capital, Abuja, after she was bitten by a snake. She didn't get the right medical attention until it was too late. Now, while this is great to hear, we've heard this time and again, you know, the challenges of primary health care or the healthcare sector in Nigeria is quite multifaceted. So I don't want us to just focus on anti-venom. That is great. But what about the infrastructure? If you don't have a cold chain storage, you just have the anti-venom wasting away. So we need to take a deeper look at the whole gamut of things, the infrastructure, the manpower. You might have infrastructure, you don't have the right manpower. So it's more than anti-venom. It's great that they're speaking about this, that there's attention, but we must move beyond just the anti-venom and look at the whole gamut of things. Now, speaking of looking at the whole, let's switch gears now and take a look at how the dailies are reporting the big stories. In a moment, we have Mr. Yelwata today joining us. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Mr. Yelwata is the commissioning editor of The Conversation Africa. Joins us right here in our Lagos. It's been a while. Have we seen you this year?
Should I say Happy New Year? That I have not seen.
Oh, really?
I've seen the rest. Happy New Year, Jeffrey.
Same to you. Wishing you all the best. It's already February, but you know, it's our culture to always Happy New Year whenever we meet. If we meet in June.
It's the best month of the year.
How have you been?
I'm good. And you?
We're trying. We're doing our bits. We're here.
Good morning.
To hold the powerful to account and to inform Nigerians on what's going on. Let's get to this Nigeria, which is the first paper we're looking at today, and is based on what we spoke about at the beginning of the program. Electoral Act reform, closed-door Senate meeting ends in silence. The riders, electronic transmission of results still unresolved. Disagreement over making BVAS failures a criminal offense. Tougher penalties for vote buying divide senators. What do you make of that?
There's this, I think it's in the Yoruba folklore, about how you ask the cat to actually watch over fish or whatever. And so the cat will end up eating the fish, if I remember very well. And it's, by the way, wonderful intro. I listened to the two of you. And we can't expect a bad tree to bear good fruit. The Senate knows very well that what they are trying to enforce, largely, they are the perpetrators. Or if they are not, they know the perpetrators. Or if they are not, they have benefited from the perpetuating such acts. I wish Nigeria very well. But it's just, by the way, I'm not sure when last the Senate actually had a 4-hour sitting. So, I mean, people who came back from a 32 or 30-day holiday, 4-hour sitting, that's interesting. But I'm not shocked or surprised by what is happening. And it's a reflection of how far we are from the wonderful electoral system. And when you look at it, a child born in 1999 is almost 30 years old. So if his or her life is like this, the parents and the guardians should be worried. And it's so sad that the more we advance, or we move rather, in the democratic journey, the terrible and terrible more our elections are. This is sad.
I imagine for those who try to envision and piece together this democratic structure, they thought, you know what, having people represent generality of people in the National Assembly, Parliament, or whatever, is meant to be progressive in the sense that they wouldn't be there for themselves.
Oh yeah,
they'll be there for the people. So whatever they do would be to the benefit of the people. But it will look like what we have right now is the people there representing the people while they get there, sometimes based on the votes of the people, or
sometimes I appreciate that.
In some,
not always.
In some sense, the calculations and others. But the point is, they eventually get there, and it looks like they are representing themselves, because it should be a no-brainer. This decision should be a reflection
this is what should help us.
of what the people
want.
want.
Driving, your car indicator shows that petrol is going down. The next logical thing, get into the next station, top up. That's all. But instead, you keep on driving. That no, it's not possible. but I don't believe my gauge. And so it's quite, in our evolution politically, it shows how far we are. And this is so painful. Despite all the advancement, despite all what we have, people can transfer money from Osun State and you get it in Kara and Moda instantly. I mean, so what is that fantastic thing about beavers capturing electronic voting immediately as it is done? We got the technology. Banks have deployed that. And it has become so common now. I mean, I remember sharing with younger people how before you can deposit money in those days, you have to go to that branch of the bank. They were like, really? I said, yes. That was what we went through. Or how you wanted to check your balance. The banker opens a big ledger at Union Bank Dubai in those days and will now look for Wale Okikiolu. Okay, this is how much you have. And they record it in your passbook. We have the passbooks these days. So how come we are refusing to advance election-wise?
What if this is, and this is me playing the devil's advocate, and that's why I talk about the structure of democracy. What if this is what the people want? Because we see what happens, and I'll get there. So we see these things,
like you and I.
We see these things playing out in the National Assembly. And while you and I will say it doesn't quite make sense.
Okay.
It will shock you, Mr. Fatade, that you get to some of the constituencies and you explain these things to the people. And people say, leave them,
you know, all
they
of
are
us
our children.
We are, how do I put it now? We are primarily sociologists. I can adduce a reason or some reasons for that. Do the citizens actually know what is crucial for them now? Are the citizens being able to piece together the fact that if you don't have a proper electoral act that is sound in theory and wonderful in practice, your election is not going anywhere? I mean, so the folks who have been pauperizing or who are bothered about daily existential issues, what concerns them about elections? That's number two. Number three, the previous elections, have they really been satisfied with the results of those elections?
There are some great individuals in the National Assembly, but for me, the day I got worried about this National Assembly, let me use maybe the House of Reps, for instance, was the emergency rule in Rivers State, where the nation was divided. Some were for, some were against. But for some reason, literally everybody who was in the House of Reps that day, for whatever reason, for whatever interest, were borderline unanimous in the decision. So this is my analogy. They are all representing the people of Nigeria.
Oh, yes.
Now, the people are divided. Some say, let the president do it. Some say, don't do it. But the collective, which is a few of them in the House, were unanimous. So who do they consult exactly
now you are talking,
to make a
what kind of information? What kind of information is available to our National Assembly members before they take decision? I was shocked when I heard that yesterday that the Senate has mandated provision of anti-venom in all health institutions across the country, and I was like, but I thought there are doctors in that assembly. On Monday, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a professor of veterinary medicine in dear old UI. And he was talking about the kind of work, research that has been done on, because he's a professor of wildlife medicine. He actually knows about snakes. He manages the snakes in the UI zoo. And I was talking with him. And so, do they understand that many hospitals in Nigeria don't have electricity? How do you store antivenom when there is no cold chain, when there is no storage, when there is no refrigeration, when there is no electricity? And I was like, do these people really? And I asked myself, but I thought there are doctors in that National Assembly, in that Senate. Do they not educate them enough? Before an average Congress member in the United States takes a decision, it's people like you and I that they are aides who have done enough research for them, who have shown them that these are the facts now. This is the implication of what you are likely going to do. These are the things that, I mean, not for them, not telling them that go and vote this way, but telling them that if you vote for this, this is what will likely happen. If you vote for that, this is what will likely happen. What kind level, I mean, what kind of analysis, kind of information, kind of knowledge is available to our senators?
Let's not even go there this morning, because they were touted electronic voting in the National Assembly. I don't know whether it's ever been used.
They never use that.
For instance, in the Senate, in the Congress in America, if three of us are in Congress, for the time being, the people can actually track how you voted, how I voted,
as a matter of
on
fact,
all issues.
As a matter of fact, it's
on all issues.
It's mandatory on your official webpage to show your record of voting.
How you voted.
And by the way,
so we can tell.
I've covered the Congress in the US. You must go back home every weekend to report back to your constituents.
So you look.
And by the way, I've been on the train from DC to Virginia with Joe Biden when he was a senator.
All right.
So what
The National Assembly, what we're saying, the National Assembly is to
give us a wonderful electoral
Give
act.
us an electoral act so that people will not see you as rubber stamp, because they keep pushing back when they say they are rubber stamp. It is moments like this that further endorses or reinforces the idea of a rubber stamp.
But I think it's up to all of us, particularly journalists now, to keep on putting these things on the front burner rather. This is our theory of agenda setting. Let's continue like we are doing now. Hammering this that look, we need an electoral act.
And I must say that most of the front pages have the story one way or the other.
Kudos to us all.
For those who don't have it, maybe they will have it on the inside pages. So let's go over to New Telegraph newspaper. Speaks to something quite different. It's about U.S. immigration crackdown. 79 Nigerians, other Africans on criminal list face deportation. So that's how the New Telegraph chooses to lead this morning. But there's another story there, Mr. Fatadi, on the front page. Kogi shuts schools across state, says it's preventive measure. It's, of course, as a result of insecurity. You see bandits kill soldier, 5 residents, this time in Plateau attack. U.S. military team sent to Nigeria after recent attacks. And the Chief of Army Staff says we've recalibrated our operations in response to emerging national security threat. 2 different stories I have highlighted. I wonder which one.
Well, I want to start with, I think our colleagues should not fall for this stigmatization of Nigerians. Nigerians are not the only ones that overstay their visas in U.S. Nigerians are not the only ones that commit criminal actions. And I'm not saying or commit crime for better expression. I'm not saying I support those things. I've never overstayed my visa. I've never do that. I'm not going to do that. What I'm just saying is that Nigerian reporters or Nigerian journalism or journalists should not fall for these banner headline or waving headline. People overstay their visas regularly. So don't, and by the way, are you sure those guys are Nigerians? I've met folks in the US who are Ghanaians, who are other West African countries, nationals, who have Nigerian passports. Yeah, I remember that. And some of them were honest enough to admit that they are not Nigerians. And so a lot of people can carry many passports, whether they acquire them legally or illegally. So, and I don't think probably there's a slow news day in the newsroom of Telegraph yesterday, because for me, this is not, I wouldn't put this on the front page. I wouldn't, because it's just, you are just stigmatizing your country. And people, journalists should not be shocked that decisions are made sometimes based on what we publish or report. Yeah. At the U.S. consul or the U.S. embassy, that's the analysis they send to their home countries. I mean, to their country, that's what they base their decision on. And so we need to step back along this line. That's one. For Kogi, I think Kogi was created in 91. I did my NYC in Kogi over 3 decades ago. And so I have a kind of sentimental attachment to Kogi. Wonderful people, especially their love of pounded yam. I think it's all parts of Kogi. It's a pity that the terrorists are winning. And you know, Kwara too just reopened schools, I think last week, after almost, is it a month or about 5 or 4 weeks? And in as much as we have recorded gains in the last few weeks, we must admit that, even though probably some of the gains could be linked to the U.S. intervention or the U.S. involvement, but I think it's sad that terrorists are winning. Because the objective is keeping children away from school. What happens by the time we reopen schools? I mean, in my home state of Osun some years back, when some schools were marched under former Governor Aregbesola, some children could not go back to school because the nearest school to them now was so far. And a lot of things happen. I mean, it's only a future that will reveal how many people we lost, not through death, but through non-attendance in school. So when schools are shut down, for a country now that actually, not just in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are one of the highest, one of the countries with the highest number of children out of school. So we are feeding that data further and further. It's sad, very painful.
We hope we can fix it. I think we're beginning to, we just hope that the citizens will know what to look out for in terms of campaign promises from the president to the governors.
So do we really track that? But
that's
citizens
what I'm
like
hopeful.
you and I that will actually
hopeful.
say those are election promises. They are not meant to be fulfilled.
So that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying. Let's get to the Daily Independent newspaper. Daily Independent newspaper is where we go next. Tinubu cites policy gains in deepening PIA, that's the Petroleum Industry Act, energy reforms. Says oil rigs surge from 8 to 69 in massive industry rebound. Nigeria has over 37 billion barrels of oil potential. That's according to the NNPCL. That's our reserve, quite the reserve in Africa, if you will, but there are bigger reserves across the continent as well.
I think it might be second after Angola.
Yeah,
I think
so,
Angola has more
but this is, I know that I think Chief of Operations also of the World Bank has visited the villa yesterday and saw the president receiving and all of that. So conversations were made. So when they come like this, these are some of the conversations they have. I even saw one headline that talked about that Nigeria is looking like a good model for those difficult reforms that are necessary to
that's the World Bank chief said that, I think. The operations manager. So I would have asked her, I think she's a woman, to take a trip, sorry for badging, to take a trip across Nigeria and interview Nigerians, not just villa people. So that she would know that which one is micro, which one is macro. Reforms that do not translate into people's pockets being filled or prices of goods coming down, I don't know how that reform could be said to be working. And it is not in World Bank validation that our government needs. It's the validation of citizens. An average Nigerian today pays more for fuel than we did before President Tinubu assumed office. Transport fares have not come down. Those of us who fly, we know how much.
Without speaking for them, their counter-argument is the fact that, although I don't like the language, but they say we're living on Father Christmas, that everything was controlled by the state. So this is liberalization at its finest.
As a father in the house, if I tell my children that we are doing reforms for better lives, and they are going hungry, I'm sure modern day children will nearly poison their father. That it is better we feed now than wait for that Eldorado. And I think in public communication, I saw the presidency. Anytime we say presidency, I remember this former secretary of the federation that said, I mean,
who's the president?
City government, who is the presidency? Babachir, I think, that was the presidency. I saw presidency releasing statements yesterday, making news of that endorsement of validation from the World Bank chief. And I think, I'm not sure my family need foreigners or external people to tell them I'm a good father. I would rather rely on their own testimony.
You know, it's always a funny situation where the ruling parties, so let me be generic now, when international organizations give kudos, I remember there was a data that came out that said 10 biggest countries that contribute to global GDP. I think Nigeria was around 6. I think perhaps the only African country there. Elon Musk tweeted it, and it was all over the place.
But what exactly, when they give you does GDP measure?
When they give you the wrong numbers, or the numbers you're not comfortable with, we don't even know.
We don't need foreign bodies.
We don't need foreign bodies to tell us. So we have to look for a way to stay with facts.
You can't cherry pick that when World Bank Chief Gayode affirms me, I'm okay. And when World Bank Chief Jeffrey now said, look, you are not different, you say, no, we can't rely on them.
You know, for what it's worth, the World Bank has always encouraged Nigeria to toe this path. In fact, there was talk around the conditional cash transfer. It was a whole plan at that point. And hey, there's also the angle of Nigeria also having access to public sector funding of $17 billion. The World Bank reiterated that. There's private sector support, $5 billion through the IFC. There's investment guarantees. So it's almost like, toe this path and we'll meet you on the way. So I don't know if there are any surprises
all the credit notes or the credit facilities we have received, to what extent?
That's a perfect question there. I don't know if we can take the Vanguard newspaper quickly this morning, and 2 stories. There's a big advertorial on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, so we're able to accommodate these 2 stories, and it's about the PDP, Mr. Fatadi. Makinde, Wike, fight dirty. No more vagabonds in PDP. That's coming from your state governor, Makinde. You are a repentant vagabond. Wike fires back. I tell you, I didn't make this word.
If Jeffrey had been posting this, I would have understood that Jeffrey has this unenviable mission of making sure that PDP does not die. But I think Dr. Jeffrey should give up.
Surgeon General Jeffrey.
Surgeon General Jeffrey should give up. So I don't know. Maybe he has infected you.
We're just fighting for all opposition parties. Because we need the ruling party, we need the opposition party.
But I think we must all accept that it's quite sad and a pity that I'm not sure PDP will come out of this coma. Whether self-induced or
inflicted
or presidency induced or whatever induced. I don't think so, because it's as of today, how many governors are left in PDP? Maybe just
3.
one or 2.
3.
Okay, wonderful governor Makinde.
No, 4. Okay, should be 4.
Bauchi,
Makinde,
the Zamfara guy said he's not leaving.
Adamawa,
Bauchi
and Zamfara.
Are you sure Fintiri has not left?
Well, you said
I like that. So that's okay. So let's not.
Fintiri is Wike's friend.
Let's not count Fintiri. Maybe he's playing another Wike role. But I think it's quite sad that we've reduced politics to this level. If you look at the ambition of PDP in 1998, when those founding fathers, which, by the way, included the late Chief Bola Igetu before he moved to APP in those days. I mean, Alex Ekweme, all of them, would they be happy with the way the party has turned to now? And for whatever anybody can say about our Second Republic, party supremacy was at its peak. I mean, the chairman of the MPN, the late Augustus Meredith Adisakiloye, was so wonderful that if you don't do anything, the governors of UPN actually had to come back to the party to report their activities. And so, maybe I'm on your side now, Jeffrey. The death of PDP is actually at certain level the loss of some values politically in Nigeria. That's sad.
It's interesting. For me, at least let's have some very
vibrant.
If we can have at least strong 5 political parties, we can have smaller parties. I mean, the big ones. So seeing them dying after losing elections, and I'll continue to say the day APC will lose election, that's where we'll know whether they are really as formidable as they are. But given the culture of Nigeria, trust me, it's the same thing that may likely happen. Wale Fatade is the commissioning editor of the Conversation Africa. Thank you, sir, as always, for bringing your insights to what the dailies are leading with. So we'll take a break. And today is going to be a big conversation on the program. First up, we're going to head to Benue to what has played out in Yelwata as far as the recovery and the efforts to resettle the people. But there are grievances on ground. Kayode, you have the next one as well.
Absolutely. So let's tell you about the situation in Yelwata. Yes, there's a case in court already with Justice Joyce Abdul Malikov of the Federal High Court ordering that 9 suspects arrested over the killings in Yelwata, Benue State be remanded at Kuje Correctional Center pending trial. So there's a court process ongoing, right, to get some sort of justice for the killings and the people. But back in Yelwata, it's important to also know what is going on there with the people who have been displaced, the ones grieving, that need urgent humanitarian assistance. So it's important to balance the conversation and ensure that they're also protected from possible future attacks. So we're joined on the program by human rights advocate who's been following the whole process. Mary Birinje joins us virtually on the program. Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning.
I imagine that you're following the process in court, but it's also important to humanize these stories. So by way of update, can you speak to us about where the people of Yelwata are at this moment in terms of humanitarian assistance, psychological support, security, and the whole gamut?
All right, good morning. I'm bringing you greetings from Benue State. So recently we have a humanitarian who came in from the United States of America, Alex Babi. He has been on ground rebuilding the affected areas. So recently I joined him when he was commissioning, dedicating rather the houses he has already built on ground, about 35 houses. So I was at Yelwata. Yeah, the security is kind of stable now because you could see people, trying to where we are currently.
Oh dear, clearly we have challenges with the connection, but we'll try to get her back.
Hello.
All right. I see we have you back. Please go ahead. You can land on your thoughts. We lost you momentarily there. All right. right. It was always going to be a tricky one, but never mind. We'll try to reestablish connection. But that trip by Alex Badi, it was heartwarming for the people, but there were also controversies around his trip, and it was a mixed bag, really. These are people that clearly need all of the help, all of the assistance they can get. And as much as possible, you want that help to come from within. But too many times, we've seen help when it comes to even fighting insecurity, ensuring the people who are affected are helped, assisted. That help usually comes from outside. So you wonder, what exactly is at play here? Is it that we don't have enough within to help ourselves and we always have to rely on people from outside? Honestly, Jeffrey, it's a major concern.
Nigeria and Africa, from my analysis, there's a fundamental challenge. We have so many good things, arable land, solid minerals, natural resources, the right population. I could go on and on, human capital across board. But one thing that is more like the Achilles heel in this case is the fact that we seem not to know or haven't arrived at, I don't know whether it's a new thing or it's been there. It feels like we don't prioritize human lives in the country. That is at the core of this. Every other thing is just basically more like the tentacles of that particular octopus. The heart of it is that you will know how a country cares or a people care for themselves based on how they prioritize a life. The massacre that occurred in Yelwata, the president had to visit Benue. He couldn't visit Yelwata, was criticized for that, but the rains couldn't allow him to travel on the roads and all of that. But that is history now. The most important thing is to restore the people, give them security, resettle them. And we understand, I think the president's wife has donated, I think, $1 billion. Another person or so, a group of people have donated another 1.7 billion. So totaling about maybe, let's give it an average of 2 to 3 or thereabout billion naira to resettle the people. We don't know whether the people have seen those monies. We don't know from what the guy, the Alex Bade, has talked about. It feels like nothing in terms of resettling 6 months after, whether building a market. In fact, he's complaining that some of the things he's doing is being frustrated by the system. And you're asking yourself, what exactly is going on? So the Benue state government, led by the governor or whoever represents that ministry, should come out to tell us exactly what is going on with restoration of Yelwata, building the people's houses back, building public places like the market, providing basics so that their lives can be restored. I don't think it's difficult to do if the funds are available, except those funds were not released. But if we prioritize human lives, Coyote, we should not be having this conversation. We should be saying by now, out of 3 markets, 2 or 1 have been built. Out of 50 houses, 10 have been built. The money that were given out of XYZ, we've distributed 200 million to this set of people. Okay, we have kept them here. We've given them a timeline to say, after this period. But everybody's busy talking about the next election. There are some governors, I'm not going to call their names because out of respect for them and all of that. But I've seen governors who are so obsessed, annoyingly, obnoxiously obsessed with being reelected. There's hardly sometimes a sentence or anywhere they want to talk without dropping about, I went there, they are telling me 4/4, 2/2. Sometimes I really don't understand. So that's why I'm saying at the core of it is the value for human life. I think we should value human lives a lot more. So Benue State, you may have to come out and tell us the allegations were laid by the gentleman who came from America. He said nobody was doing anything. He waited, nobody was doing anything. So that's why he came. So I understand she's back. Madam, momentarily we lost connection with you. Can you hear us now?
Yes, sure, I can.
Okay, just go on with what you were saying before the network.
Okay, so basically, like what I was saying is, like we have a humanitarian who came in since last year, who has been working at the Yelwata community, trying to rebuild the community. So far, he has built about 35 houses. And you can see that's the young man over there. And also, the Benue State government has also initiated the plan of rebuilding the Yelwata community. Last month, they flagged off the initiative, which was approved by the State Executive Council. And to the best of my knowledge, because I was in Yelwata, and I also went to the site where they have also commenced, the work on, rebuilding Yelwata.
So,
yeah, I was just going to ask, all of the donations, the aids that came from within, what exactly happened to them? Because it took someone from outside to build not one, not two, but several houses for these people. Just for context, the killings, the massacre happened in June. That's about 7-8 months ago. So what exactly happened to all of those aids from governments, people in government? What happened to their aids that it took someone from outside to build these houses?
All right. To the best of my knowledge, I am aware of the 1 billion naira that was donated by the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and which is 1 billion naira, and also some other donations. But what the Benue State government is working on is 1.275 billion. That's the amount they are working on. And according to what they said, that they are going to build 62 houses. And like most times when these donations comes in, we have the welfare of the IDP at the IDP camps, where you have to feed them, to give them shelter, medication, clothing, and all of that. So, but basically, what they said is on ground is 1.2750, and that is the fund they say they are going to use for the project at Yelwata.
So give us from what you know. We can see, I'm happy we're seeing these pictures of the bricks they are laying to rebuild these homes. He said, how many has Alex built? How many has the government built so far, so that we can do a tally of what is going on? And how many is expected to be built?
Okay, Alex has built 35 houses. And there are other houses that are also on foundation level, but the ones that he has completed are 35 units. And this unit comprises of 6-bedroom flats, 3-bedroom flats, 4-bedroom flats, 2-bedroom flats, and 1-bedroom flats, all put together. And then the Benue State government, they have built up to little level about 5 units already, about 5 units.
So when you speak to the people of Yelwata, what are they saying as far as this development, or this, well, I call it some progress that is being carried out by the gentleman is going on in a particular community? I know that a lot of people are still at the IDP camp, so when this is built, people will have to go back to their villages and all of that. Do they feel like a sense of safety? Do they feel like this is a good time to return back to where we are used to?
Yeah, I think the best thing that has happened to the people of Yelwata is the coming of Alex Gabi. Alex has been on ground, just like I stated earlier, he has been on ground since last year. In fact, if you see Alex looks like even one of the indigenous. He has made friends with those people. He has made those people feel home. They feel homely. Like when we went, the last time we were at the community, you can see, these people are virtually tired of staying at the IDP camps, because some of the houses were not yet completed, but you see them moving in because they prefer, staying in their own home than staying at the IDP. And then when I look at the security around, there's something I discovered, that the security on ground is not enough. The people around there, they really want to go back home, but deep down within themselves, they know that the place is not 100% safe. It's not 100% safe. So I want the government of Benue State to, beef up the security, and not just beefing up the security, the youth in the community need, to also be educated, be trained, on how to resist some of these attacks when they come.
On a final note, as we begin to wind down, and it doesn't sound good that the people still cannot return because the security is not foolproof just yet. There were also reports around him being tracked, threatened, and all of that. What do you know about those reports?
Pardon?
So there were reports about him being tracked, threatened.
Sorry,
There was some sort of opposition against his visit. So please speak to us about that. We know he has left, but what exactly played out there?
Of course, you know that there will always be, people who want to sabotage whatever effort someone is trying to put out there. To the best of my knowledge, during his stay in Benue State and in Makurdi, he was safe. I remember when he was also invited at the DSS office, which I also accompanied him. And the reason why he was invited was, being an American citizen and he is in Benue State working, the DSS should be aware for proper profiling. So that was the reason why we went to DSS office.
We have to thank you so much for the updates, and this is a story we will follow in courts and on ground in Yelwata. We've been speaking with human rights advocate Mary Benjaf, who joins us live from Benue State. Thank you for your time. I wish you the very best.
Sorry, I'm not yet gone. Sorry, are you there?
We have to anchor at this point, but as I said, this is a story we are following, and we'll continue to touch base with you to get more. But please always get to us as soon as you have any more that you'd like to speak to. We'll take a quick moment now, and when we return, we have a very special segment for you in a moment.
Welcome back. I can guarantee that there are not many times you see what you're about to see on live television. Literally, it's a show about royalty with a cause. And that's why we have our traditional rulers at the highest level joining us right here in our Lagos studios. There was a conference of African traditional and cultural leaders on gender-based violence prevention with the theme Driving Norms, Change and Prevention Through Cultural Custodianship. And at the very peak of this conversation are the persons who are the custodians of our heritage. Joining us right here in our Lagos studio, we have the honor of having with us His Royal Highness Alhaji Dr. Haliru Ndandusa, the Emir of Shonga in Kwara State. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. Thank you for coming on the program. We also have, he doesn't need an introduction, His Royal Highness Alhaji Muhammad Sanusi II, the Emir of Kano. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
We also have His Royal Majesty Igwe Meka Achebe, the Obi of Onitsha. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
It's literally an avalanche of royalty, and so we're very pleased to have you here. So let me start with you, sir.
I thought start from the top.
Sir?
I thought start from the top.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so I can start with you.
Anyway.
As custodian of the heritage of the people, we're super excited to see that you are the vanguard of leading the cause against gender-based violence. And when I saw the listing and the advocacy and seeing that you are the vanguard, I mean, the royal fathers are the vanguard of all of this, I just tried to wonder to myself, how urgent is the conversation you are having around gender-based violence now, and why this is important at this moment?
It's very urgent. More urgent because you cannot continue to have about half of your population not producing, not being productive. And gender-based violence is about a gamut of issues that have gender as a basis, both male and female, but largely affecting male because of patriarchy, because of all sorts of things. So issues about emotional, ecological, physical, all those actually are very important. Then there are other harmful traditional practices which really should be gone at this age, but are still being practiced and causing harm. issues like child marriage. When I'm talking about child carrying a child, you see, then you know what we're talking about. We're not discussing debate about age, but a child is a child. And then issues, so many issues, which we all know are not quite favorable to particularly the woman. But young boys also get affected. It's a very urgent conversation. And as we go along, I'm sure we'll talk at various aspects of it. Quite urgent conversation.
I would also like to take Amir as well. I know you have been very vocal, unapologetic about your position on some of these things and the norms and the practice, because the argument sometimes, I'm happy traditional institution is well represented. The argument sometimes is how to sustain cultures and norms in modern times. So sometimes there's a conflict, and sometimes you want to look for a nexus between both. So from where you sit and what you have done so far as a senior traditional ruler at the highest level, what are the challenges you're seeing practically that has not been easy to resolve based on those norms and what is happening today?
Well, first of all, I think if you take it from a purely philosophical view, the idea of a static culture does not exist. Culture itself is dynamic. What is acceptable in a culture in a particular time and place may be unacceptable in the same society at a different point in time. That's the first thing. The second thing is who defines culture? It's usually defined by those who are in power. It's a question of the definition and the view of those who at that material point in time wield the power. So in a patriarchal society, culture is defined in the interest of the men because the men are the ones who control society. And as you begin to have shifts in power dynamics with education of women, with enlightenment, with a new interaction with other societies, okay, those things change. So my view is that there is nothing like a static culture that we must hold on to, and that is sacrosanct, and irrespective of what the values of society are, those will not change. So that's the first thing. The second thing is from the perspective of my society. Are you really interested in preserving a culture or living by an ideal? So we are a Muslim society. And I keep saying, okay, if you tell me, for example, that domestic violence is part of your culture, well, show me where in the Quran or the Hadith or in the jurisprudence of Islam, okay, it is allowed for you to have violence against your wife. You're a Muslim society. And as you begin to understand the difference between what your religion teaches you, what your faith teaches you, and you're supposed to be a Muslim primarily, and what you may have seen happen in your environment, you begin to change. You begin to accept as a Muslim. So I think the dynamics of culture are important. This idea that you have something cultural that will not change it's a myth. Culture is always dynamic, and it is never neutral. It is imbricated in a whole set of power relations, and as these power relations change, and as we unpack them and understand them, we begin to see changes in culture.
I think it's really cheery to see you speaking about these things, and I know it will carry a lot of weight for Nigerians who are watching. And I want to come to you, Your Royal Majesty, and ask, how then can we use culture as a tool to protect the dignity of women and girls? I was looking at the data. It says 1 in 3 of every girl before 15 is faced with that sad reality of gender-based violence. That's 33%. It's quite huge. So how can we use culture, which we've always known to be the bedrock of our society, to then protect our women practically now, sir?
Culture is the way of life of a people. Yeah. And as Saki Khan has just said, culture has to be dynamic. Okay, has to be dynamic. And people oftentimes misunderstand that dynamism that has to be there, because the culture is there to serve the people. But from ancient times, our ancestors, their worldview was very limited. I mean, the sun rising in the east and setting in the west was mystery. But now we know. And there are certain health issues that were seen as taboo, but we know that they're not taboos anymore. So first of all is education, to enlighten our people in terms of, what are the true core elements of our cultural traits. And as time goes on, in my own community, and I'm sure in every other community, certain elements that don't make any sense today are discarded. Okay, and we have the authority in our community, with the traditional council, to make decisions. And so we're using culture to protect not only girls and women, protect everybody. The widowers, the disabled, the down and outs, people who are unhealthy. We use culture to protect all of them. And it's all about our coming together within our community, the way we organize, and taking care of each other. And we have our rules and regulations, our guidelines, and people who act otherwise, the system calls them to order. And it's working for us. We have a very robust organization and activity organized to transform our community, effectively, to bring it up to the 21st century. That's what you're working on.
Amazing. And I like that you mentioned that we're in an age where people would most likely consult AI before they consult the Oracle. I mean, then it used to be Oracle first, but now people go to AI before Oracle. So clearly things are changing so fast. But we still cannot discountenance the power, the impact, the influence that you wield. And it takes me to my next question. From your experience now and from the work that you've done, what role do you think traditional leaders play that laws and policies cannot play? Yes, we may have the laws, we may have the policies, but sometimes it doesn't quite trickle down. So how are you able to bridge that gap that laws and policies are not able to bridge?
Well, we're at the theater of events. We're close to the people. What in medicine called final common pathway. So things come through, development comes through, people come and approach us to approach our communities. Let me illustrate one point. If a development agent comes to your community, talks to you about wonderful change, and you say, okay, all right, or you say nothing. When he goes out and convinces people, before they do anything, they come back to you. That's the kind of power of relationship we have with them. We're always there with them. The politician goes and comes, but we're always there. So they listen to us. And therefore, the more enlightened we are about the things we want to talk about, the better we're able to express and get change to happen. So we've had considerable shifts in many issues. For example, when I was in my early days in medical school, we had this issue called a woman has to give birth, take hot water, plenty of salt, and gets into heart failure. And many had lost through that. But they said, no, if you don't do that, the womb will not heal, you will not have further babies. We went through systematic studies, then now we started a campaign. It's now been wiped out in the northern part of the country. This was when I was a student who did that. So this is a clear example where culture was harmful, but they kept practicing it, and old people believed. So the thing about culture is that sometimes you take it as a religion. You take it that if I don't do this, then I'm not part of a bona fide member of that culture or something like that. So the first thing is to see what effect does it have. Anything that does more harm than good can't be beneficial, cannot be supported by faith, by religion, by anything. And so many things that we do, we can approach them, talk to them, tell them the ills of what's going on, and we get them to, even politics, when you come, they may be able to sway them one way or the other. The important thing is that we're there for the good of our people. However, there's a small fraction that may not quite be convinced, are steeped in the culture itself and perpetrators of cultural harm. So our part of our own work is also to face those people and get them out of the woods, and so we can work together. So yes, we're able to influence what's happening, and that's why the more enlightened we are, as he here now, then the more we're able to separate and see what's going on and get them to move on. So we have had shifts in many cultural issues.
I'm happy, sir, that you talked about what has been done, because my worry, which brings me to the next question, Your Royal Highness. And so for those who are not familiar, so we have, they're not just Royal Highnesses, they're intellectuals. His Royal Highness just recently got his PhD. Congratulations as well. Since this is the first time I'm seeing you to talk about this. But let's talk about...
I'm also an undergraduate now.
No, we choose to stay with the former.
Reading law.
We know the numbers are really looking good when it comes to the degrees. But let's talk about some of the challenges that I don't know how you're navigating it when it comes to operating within modern civilization in terms of a democracy where it is government that makes policies. And then as a traditional institution, as a stool, there are certain things you want to push forward, but you may not even have a prosecutorial powers to be able to advance those causes. So you see that this is a norm that is antithetical to the welfare of the people, but because of the limitations of your power given the institution of state, how do you walk around those fine lines to ensure that this is implemented and those things are corrected? Maybe with an example.
Okay, so a number of things. First of all, I think this question links up to the last question. And we need to understand that law itself does not operate with the same efficacy in every single area of human endeavor. Okay, so the law is very effective when you deal with instrumental things. You're defining contracts, you're defining rights under a contract, you're defining a crime. That is very clear. When you begin to legislate culture, or legislate in areas that people hold dear and see as a matter of belief, it becomes difficult. Okay, you have to look at other things. So that's extremely important. When does the law work? And when does the law need other things? Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is we must avoid single narratives. Not every issue is purely cultural. And some cultures are themselves driven by certain economic circumstances. There's a culture of poverty. For example, if you look at societies where you've got very low levels of literacy, if you look at societies where you've got very low levels of income, it doesn't matter whether they're Hausa or Igbo or Hindi or English, you find the same cultures, you find the same violence, you find the same levels of oppression, you find drugs, and these are cultures of poverty that basically begin to change as people begin to get economically empowered. Now, in terms of our relationship with the law is the same part of the broad relationship we have with political society. If we feel there's need for legislation, we should engage the legislators. Those are the ones that constitutionally have the right to make the law. You talk to the governor, you say, look, I think the state needs to make a law on this. And if we're able to provide private member bills, I led a process in Kano for codifying Muslim family law. Now, the only reason it's not a law today is because we still have to make some amendments to that. And my hope is to bring it to the governor and say, Your Excellency, this is something I think you need to do.
It's not like lobbying.
Yeah, well, no, it's actually, well, it's advice, it's consultation. It's basically being, look, we're part of the leadership of society. The governors, the political leaders take us as their traditional and religious leaders. We take them as political leaders. So we respect those spaces. Okay, making laws is the sphere of the governor and the State House of Assembly. Okay, now if we feel that there's a need to make a law, we should be able to propose that law and, like any other interest group, explain why this is important. It is in the interest of the good governance of society. So that is one thing. The other thing is sometimes, as I said, you don't even need to have the law. Okay, we do a lot of role modeling. We're the custodians of culture. So if people don't want to educate their daughters, for example, and the OB or the emir basically sends his daughter to school, you know, and she goes to university. Okay, how do you explain that there's a culture that is against culture? We are the custodians of culture, and our daughters are going to school. Okay, and our daughters are working. So sometimes it's not even the law. And when somebody says, well, if the emir's daughter is going to university, why can't my daughter go to university? You know, so ultimately, I think our role is more one of doing as much as we can to set the pace, but also working okay, you have to be very careful so you don't move away, you don't move ahead of your, and lose your community. Okay, so sometimes you've got to be careful not to move too fast. Okay, you need to first of all get them to accept and to understand why these changes need to happen. And working with political society, I think we can do that.
Your Majesty, let me come to you, and I'm happy the way His Highness went about how to navigate between the state and the traditional institution. But there's also the part of moral persuasion. He's talked about using modeling as a way to botch some of these norms that have been held for a very long time. I try to emphasize pushbacks because there are people that hold on to things for as long as possible. So talk to us down south where you lead your people. Is that a difficult thing to do, or are there other challenges that is not maybe common that we may not have been able to identify, but maybe moral persuasion or issues around using institution of state or literally advancing through mentorship or role modeling, you've been able to advance those causes?
Yes. In some cases, there are pushbacks, okay, and particularly some elements of our culture, of our tradition that has been on for a long time. I'll give you an example. For instance, when I came onto the throne, our traditional burial, which even the church has also emulated, is that you have a wake keep, which is an all-night affair. And then the next day is the interment, which is a big ceremony. And then after that, then is the Thanksgiving service for the third day. So to bury somebody, it was 3 days of spending money. And the traditional council under me decided we can cut it down to 1 day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Finish. No wake keep, no day after, etc., etc. Fine. We knew that there would be resistance, the women's group, etc. In fact, the women's group would be the biggest resistance. So we then set off a consultation and spoke to the leaders of the women group and convinced them that it's the right way to go, and there's nothing about our culture, our tradition, that is going to be set aside, because everything can be done in 12 hours. They accepted it, then they proposed it to the traditional council. It was them that now proposed to the traditional council, and then it was adopted. Initially, there were grumblings and pushback, but today, everybody said it's one of the biggest, best decisions that we've made in the past several years. And then the church also has adopted it. That's the interesting thing. Okay. So, yes, any new guidelines or rules, there'll be people in the society who are benefiting from the old system who do not want it to change. But then, consultations, town hall meetings, persistent discussions, and demonstrating the benefits of change, they fall in line. And that's how we get along.
Well said. I was just on a lighter note, when you talked about 3 days, now vendors may not be happy with the traditional institutions. But we'll take a break. When we come back, the royalties are here. We'll continue the conversation in just a moment. Stay with us.
I think it's safe to still call it the royal edition of the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television, because it's a power-packed show for you today. We still have with us His Royal Majesty Igwe Nemeka Achebe, the Obi of Onitsha, His Royal Highness Alhaji Muhammadu Sanusi II, the Emir of Kano, and His Royal Highness Alhaji Haliru Danusa, Emir of Shonga, Kwara State. Thank you very much for staying with us. We're having a very interesting conversation just before the break of how you were able to change the culture without damaging anything. I mean, you just presented, I imagine, the facts, what is rational, and the people took it on board. But I want us to maybe deal with something that has been pervasive, and that's the thinking that culture in itself is sort of defective. It is bad, particularly our culture. And I think I sense that you've been trying to clear that air, that culture is not really bad. And I must step back and say, I mean, you've had illustrious careers, medicine. Well, you're building another career apparently now that you're an undergraduate, but you've reached the peak of your career in finance, user in the oil and gas industry. So you didn't just wake up and you just started with traditional leadership. You succeeded, you know, in the private sector. So maybe we can use this medium to speak to that perception that our culture is defective, it is bad, and that's why we have all of these challenges like GBV. Is that true for you, sir?
Yes, culture is a continuum, so many things. So when you look, you take stock. The ones that are causing more harm, you try and address them very quickly. There are some that are just benign, allow them to say that's my culture. When you dance this way or dance that way, it doesn't really matter. But take, for example, early marriage. It's contentious, you see, Islam. But when you say 18 years, they say, no. Don't waste your time with that. Force them to school. When you force them to school, you do many things. So we can use that instrumentality to get them to fall into marrying late, because it's very devastating when you marry early. Fancy a girl because somebody say you can marry at 13 or 12 or whatever it is. It's a baby carrying a baby. Sometimes they fall together and stand up again. But more importantly, she gets damaged. I remember my first practice, the first time when I was in ONG posting, a 13-year-old came bleeding. And one tall gentleman who said was my friend said, that's my wife. I didn't understand. I said, your daughter? I said, my wife. So these are, I'm not going too medical, I'm trying to say really in culture, in the setting. So when you get information that you think you can now use, break it down for them to see. This girl is leaking urine. This girl is too young. She might get, so mention all those ills. Sometimes have pictures. So we're advising you, this is not right. Push them to school and then force them to school. We can create smart bylaws ourselves, which they listen to. Once the council decides, look, let's not do this. If they start doing it, they know they're running foul of the system itself. And so, yes, you don't waste your time on so many benign ones that just make life livable and make you an identity for you. There are certain nasty ones. That's the one, those are the ones we now prioritize and try to work about. But they must understand what you're doing. And then they come along with you. Then later you come back and say, well, thank you for what's happened. Yeah, so it's a challenge. But pick and cherry pick which ones I know are more dangerous, work on them. Usually can get them convinced.
Because what I see now is a trend. It's almost like you're now throwing the baby and the bathwater away. Culture is bad. But I know you want to say something to that.
Well, first of all, I think it's extremely important to be very aware, okay, of the difference between a narrative and reality. Gender-based violence happens in all societies. It's not about an African culture, okay? It's about, again, power relations, where you have, if it's against women, where you have men having power and the women are not protected, men will take advantage of that power and oppress them. And in our society, the weak and the vulnerable are victims. You have women who are victims of violence, you have young children, you have the poor, you have the disabled. Okay, they're all victims. If you go to a hospital, you find crippled women, blind women who are victims. You have pediatric sexual abuse. So we need to, first of all, say that as a country, okay, we have citizens and human beings, and they have rights. Those rights are inviolable. You cannot violate them in the name of a culture. You cannot beat a woman because your culture says you can beat her. She's a Nigerian citizen entitled to protection. It doesn't matter what you think, okay, because these are the values that we live by in this time. You cannot abuse a child, okay? We have a Universal Basic Education Act. It says every child is entitled to basic education, right? If you take a child out of school, you're supposed to commit an offense. How many people have ever been arrested for taking children out of school? You know why? Because the government has not provided the schools. It's all well and good to talk about child marriage. You go to a village in some parts of the north, and there's a primary school, and that's it. So the girl finishes school at 11. Between 11 and 18, What arrangements have you made for her? There's no secondary school. There's no skills center. There is no provision at all for her life. The poor man basically finds that she's 12, 13, he's afraid that she can go and get pregnant on the road, and the next young man that comes, he marries her off. Okay, so you've got to understand that sometimes these cultures basically reflect poverty. It's not about supply, demand is also supply for education. Let's build the schools. Let us go and make sure that we have the primary schools, we have the secondary schools, we have the teachers. And then let us see if people do not take their children to those schools. So for me, it's very easy to blame culture. It's very easy to blame a victim. When you sit in a city like Kano, you see all the schools, you don't know what's happening in the village. Okay, when you go there, I mean, it will take, how many hours it will take a girl to get from a village to the local government headquarters because the roads are not good, because the roads are not safe. We don't have safe environments. So we need to basically understand that some of these things are very, very complex. But as a nation, we need to have certain common agreements, certain values. And in this week, we'll have got to say, look, it is simply not acceptable for you to beat a woman. Simple. It doesn't matter what you think your culture says. The Nigerian law does not allow you to do it. Okay, there are things that are just unacceptable. You cannot abuse a child. Doesn't matter what you think. Okay, that becomes the culture that we have. Now, many of these things, like I say, are not even cultural. They're just people who take advantage of positions of power and exploit and abuse, and then justify, find some justification in the name of culture. It's a culture of oppression, a culture of violence, and that culture needs to change.
Your Royal Majesty.
Just give me the question again, please.
Yes, the question is about culture fundamentally, because there's a mentality that our culture is bad. That's why we have these things. So we sort of throw away the baby and the bathwater. But consistently, I've seen a narrative, you trying to separate culture, our own culture, from the culture of poverty, for example, culture of violence, which you find around. The Epstein files in a much saner society is showing gender-based violence on another level entirely. And that's in America. They don't have the culture we have here. So I just wanted to speak to that, maybe to add to what
I think Saki Kano has said quite a bit about that. What is culture? From my own perspective, is our way of life of a people. Okay, our behaviors, our attitude, our reaction to certain, to circumstances around us, and all of that. And in my community, I tell my people that there's a distinction between what you call mumbo jumbo, that they call culture, which is not, and the real core. If you go back to ancestral times, you know, our people protected each other, our ancestors protected each other. If you claim that the female were, quote unquote, the weaker sex, which we know now they are not, but they were well protected, okay? In our tradition, marriage is between one family and the other. And you give your daughter to the other family, say, treat her as your own daughter. If she does well, acknowledge her. If she doesn't do well, admonish her. But not violence and not beating and none of that. But if it happens, the other family will protect their daughter and so on. So there are clear distinctions as to what is real culture and what people have referred to because of their own bad behavior. I think it is culture, okay? We address it in every manner. In the conference, I gave an example of what just happened in my community, where two brothers, the elder brother beat the younger brother's wife because she was foul-mouthed. That was the description. So there's an emotional violence and there's a physical violence. And of course, the village came together immediately under the village chief and the spiritual head. And they find the gentleman, or they didn't find him. they suspended him from all village activities for 6 months.
Interesting.
Okay, that's at the village level. Now, it came to the traditional council. The traditional council now fined the gentleman under 100,000 naira. Okay, and having done that, then I asked the question, because I was in Zaria, is that sufficient? And then the senior chief came back to me saying, yes, we've done everything we can do, because the bottom line is that the victim and the perpetrator actually embraced themselves in the palace, and they all walked home hand in hand. So back in the village lifted the suspension. So we worked together. We used the arbitral system, because we're all one in the family. We're all one in the Onitsha is one. We're intermarried, we're interrelated, etc., etc. So when issues like that come, we'll convince the perpetrator that he did the wrong thing, and he will apologize. Okay, and then we carry it on from there. Violence and criminal acts must go to the police. We don't condone that. So the beating was mild. Okay, if it was serious, it would have gone to the police anyway, and we'll still take our action as a community. You know, I mean, that's the way we go about it. So by and large, communication, education, every occasion is an opportunity to educate the society. So this event of last week, everybody's talking about it in the community, okay, and with a happy ending. Some don't end so happily, unfortunately, but then that's why we're there, to keep addressing issues as they come up. Okay. And for the children, in my community, they're reasonably well protected, even though we still have that culture of silence, you see, which we are actually conducting a study right now, sponsored by the Ford Foundation, that if a woman is beaten by her husband, she thinks it's a taboo to go back to her family and complain. And in fact, her mother may say, you know, in the case of years, oh, don't worry, it's going to get better, so go back, and so on. That a broken marriage is a taboo. It's not. But you have to support everybody in the system to make life better for everybody. It's a continuous process. It's work in progress. And that's why we're here. GBV, culture of silence, is serious. We're excavating. We're bringing out cases, and we're going to do a report and then go to implementation. The whole community is involved in the whole process.
Your Majesty, I think there's nothing that can be louder than three of you being here at this level, talking about this to the entirety of the country and across the continent. Let me come to you, Your Highness, and one of the things that's been ringing on my mind, you said it in passing. Sometimes, let's talk about the issue of patriarchy and the power issue. Do you feel that sometimes because women are not on the table is also a challenge?
It is. I mean, I think it's extremely important for people to speak up for themselves. No matter how much as men we can put ourselves in the shoes of women, we're not women. We don't know what it is to go through 9 months of pregnancy. We don't know what it is to deal with a sick baby. We don't know what it is to be a victim of abuse. We don't know what it is to take care of a home, cook, take care of children, have sex, have babies. You know, that kind of burden only a woman understands, okay? So one of the things we need to do is look at the structural arrangements politically in our country. Okay, and I've always said, for example, if you take our Constitution talks about diversity. But what is diversity? It says it's diversity of states. But is that the only diversity we need to take care of? Should our Constitution not make a provision for a certain minimum representation of women in the cabinet and in the assembly? I mean, in my state, we have a state House of Assembly. We have 40 members. As far as I know, since 1999 till now, we haven't had a single female member of the House of Assembly. Now, none of those men has ever been a victim of domestic violence. None of them is a victim of gender-based violence. It's not their fault that they're not thinking like women, but if you had 10, 15 women there, there would be bills talking about women issues. Okay, so we've got to go beyond, again, giving lip service to these things and actually take steps, okay, to structurally alter the processes through which these laws are made, and that's how you begin to alter these power relations. Now, we can do a lot by speaking up as leaders. So I'll give it. So many years ago, I made a statement that became very controversial hue and cry. I publicly said, look, I've said to my daughter that if you come to me and say your husband slapped you, but you did not slap him back before coming here, I would slap you myself. Okay, you know, it was a big controversy. But you know what? It brought up the question: are you allowed to slap your wife? I mean, as a Muslim, did the Prophet ever slap his wife? Do we know of the companions that we take as models, anyone who slapped his wife? In fact, what did the Prophet say about men who beat their wives? He said they are the worst among you. How do you beat a woman and then go and sleep with her? And there was, in fact, a case of a woman who came to the Prophet and said her husband slapped her, and he said, go and slap him back. So where does anybody get that there is a culture in a Muslim society that allows you to beat your wife? Where is the model? So, you know, that's why I say we need to make a distinction between a myth and a reality. Who defines the culture? And people tend to define culture, they tend to appropriate the term culture to justify an existing set of power relations. Yeah, and I keep coming back to that. It's about relations of power. Now, you've got to basically undermine, dismantle those structures. When you begin to have 50% of your cabinet are female, 30, 40% of your... Look, we've got 109 senators. How many women do we have?
About 4. About 4.
109. You've got 360 members of House of Reps. How many women do you have? And they're starting from a position of a disadvantage. If we've got highly educated women, many of them who are more qualified than some of the people that you have in those assembly, why don't you give them those opportunities? If you've got to have affirmative action, basically create a space, declare certain seats, all female seats. When the proposal came to the National Assembly to have 1/3 women, what did they say? They said, well, you now create a new senatorial district. So instead of having 109 senators, no, the men don't want to give up one seat. You create another seat. So you still have 109 men, and then you can bring in 30 women. But why don't you say in every state, okay, for two terms at least, you have senatorial districts that are designated as all female districts. Let every party put up a woman, and let the best woman win. You'll at least make sure that 33% of your senators are female. And those issues now, they are now on the table. If you're not on the table, you are on the menu. Okay, you'll be eaten. So let them be on the table. Okay, and that goes to commissioners, it goes to local governments, and then you begin to see that these issues take a life on their own because they are out there. You are hearing their voice, and you're compelled to listen to them. So unless we understand that some of these things that we call culture simply reflect, okay, relations of power, and begin to undermine the entrenched vested interests, and basically unpack these processes of power, we're never going to have the dynamic. Culture will always move, but we want to make sure that it moves in the direction that we want it to move.
Your Highness, I'm sure you have what to add to what His Highness has already said. It's thought crossed my mind when I heard one time, because it talked about the power dynamics, and I was thinking about the balance of power, that if you know that if you slap your wife has the ability to beat you, you will refrain. At least your common sense will tell you that the outcome is going to be very disastrous.
Or that her father or brother will come and beat the hell out of you.
In that sense. So I'm wondering, sir, when you weigh what we're dealing with in terms of the balance of power, there are two parts I would like you to speak to. The other part may just be the physical strength. The other part has to be economic power. to be able to counter some of these things? There's poverty. When you talk about poverty, you now go to women. How do you intend as an institution to work, to work with government, like you segued into issues of policy and politics, to ensure that however we can make it happen, women are no longer menus. They are right now, they should be on the table.
Well, I think girls' child education, and really pursue it relentlessly. Allow the opportunities, insist on the opportunities. Government should make laws about the opportunities. Like in many states now, the Child Rights Act has come into being, but I think all the states. So you can really enforce a girl going to school. But like you said, it's the infrastructures. The other part that we mustn't ignore is the male child. Bring him up not thinking of patriarchy, that strength, that issue. Bring them up, or rather, even now, the big ones can have clubs for boys and for men, where you continuously instruct them about these power relations. It's causing a lot of harm. Some just relish it. They think that's me, that means masculinity. But we have to gradually, over time, tell them this is wrong. We have forming from boy clubs, men for she, that help so much in mobilizing for maternity, mobilizing. So we're forming that as a physical, it's like a war against indiscipline. You start by arresting people to enter lines, but you go to school and start orienting them for the future. So we have to do boys' clubs, men's clubs for many issues, and make sure, orient them, let them understand what it is, see, then show the harm they're doing, and they gradually shift. But then, more importantly, get the girls to school, make sure that we really don't waste our opportunity, and give incentives for them to be in school, follow the law. I think ultimately, down the line, we'll get it. But then the other thing is to have enlightened leaders. Enlightened leaders. It can always take you up anytime. Obi can take you anytime. I think I take them anytime. You face them, most of them are illiterate, or many of them are illiterate, tell them, hammer on the ills that they can demonstrate. And eventually, over years, they look at their daughters and things begin to change. So I think really we're in for a big haul. But the laws from government should be enforced. We are enforcers of the law at grassroots, so we can use the law, use the police, use the court, but persuasion is best.
Well, I see this topic is one that has stayed with us for such a long time, and it looks like it's morphing into something else entirely. But I want to ask, in an age where people are trying to navigate modernization and also the traditional, side of things, the culture, I jokingly said earlier that people will most likely ask AI before they come to the oracle or come to the traditional institutions right now, because that's what it is. Do you feel threatened that this is your voice, the power that you wield, the influence? Do you feel threatened that it may be not as strong as it used to be? A lot of people are now moving from the rural areas to the urban areas. We're seeing a major shift. So just how influential do you think your role is still? Before we segue into other things, but I wanted to ask how you're thinking and processing these issues, sir.
You talk about consulting AI before going to the oracle.
On a lighter note.
Well, on a serious side, I can tell you that this interview is being watched by my people all over the world. Yeah. Because by the use of technology, single push broadcasts information to everybody wherever they are. In America, they're sitting up to watch this interview and all that. So what you've done, and successfully, is to adopt technology, in our traditional governance. And what is wrong with that? Every quarter, I hold a global town hall meeting with my people by Zoom. Okay, 300 people sign up. And we discuss issues of the community.
I wanted to clap for that.
That's beautiful.
We discuss issues of the community. And out of that, great ideas come to the traditional council to adopt, to going forward. So, for instance, I was in Indianapolis a couple of years ago, and I had a town hall meeting from there. Out of that, we set up a community development trust fund, which, as at now, probably has about 300 million naira in it. Wow. That sort of thing. Yeah, so we don't see conflict between modernization and our culture and tradition. And the biggest drivers, I mean, the Onitsha development, our development NGO, is led by my best and brightest managing director of all banks, former managing director of one of the shell companies in Nigeria, and all of those. See, we've been brought up at home. If you're not brought up at home and we're brought up in Abuja or Lagos, you don't forget your culture because your parents inculcate it in you. Yeah. Your language, your food, your dress, your mannerism, your attitude to elders, and your attitude to children also. And education, of course, is the best mechanism to actually build bridges between culture or the tradition and modernism. Okay, based on my understanding of my tradition and culture and my Christian background, I've been able to convince our religious leaders that there's no irreconcilable difference between our tradition and religion. Because yes, of course, yes, you can ask them. And so that aspect is eased off quite a bit. Okay, everybody goes to church now, but also if you have a traditional ceremony, people come. Okay. There's certain things like swearing on oath is banned. We don't swear on oath anymore. Okay, because it doesn't help the society. And if you go behind, the people who concoct the oath and the shrines and so on, they're all human creations. If you go back to the days of slavery, the Arochukwu, Big Juju and all that was all about shipping people abroad for slavery and all of that. So there's more rationality coming into understanding and interpreting our norms and behaviors. Understanding why our ancestors did what they did. I'll give you an example. What is called Obanje, and in our own ancient belief, a child is born and dies and comes back again and keeps tormenting the parents and so on and so forth. And of course, science has demonstrated that Obanje is actually a cause of sickle cell anemia, which is prevalent amongst black people. So if a sickler and a sickler get married, their children are going to keep dying and all of that. So we understand it. And how do you stop it? It's medical science, basically, and all that. And other things like sudden death. Our forefathers didn't know how to manage hypertension. So a man goes to the farm. On his way back, he falls on the ground and he dies. They said, that the spirits have struck. That the spirits have struck. So he must have done something wrong. But you never measured his blood pressure. You didn't have a mechanism to measure his blood pressure anyway.
We didn't have a figure at that time.
And all of that.
Yes.
So in effect, there's no conflict between modernization and our norms and our tradition. And it's a matter of building bridges and establishing what are the core elements of our tradition. Okay.
I absolutely love the way you presented it. So you don't have to pick and choose. One can complement the other. And it's great to see that you're leveraging technology to even propagate tradition. Your Royal Highness, I know you probably want to add something to that, but let me layer this question. Some have said in order to preserve our traditional institutions, let's codify this. Let's have it in our constitution. So we have bills before the National Assembly, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. One is to formally, recognize and establish the National Council for Traditional Rulers to accord formal recognition to them. Before the House of Reps as well, we have something similar. But there have been controversies around it, right? Saying, would we be duplicating some of these duties? Who will then be in charge of this council? No, it has to be someone from our side. No, it can't be someone from your side. So what is meant to cure what is seen as an ill is now causing more controversy. Do you see a solution to this that works for everyone?
Okay, so Okay, so I wanted to add something to what the OB had said. Just one point on that. You know, when you talk about tradition and culture, you also look at the personalities occupying institutions. If you look at all the traditional rulers in Nigeria, you're not going to find anyone who did not go through Western education. Okay, the Sultan of Sokoto was a general. The Shah of Borno was a permanent secretary. The Oba of Lagos, you know, was a senior police officer. Emir of Shonga is a medical doctor. You know, the Obi of Onitsha, oil and gas. You know, I was in Central Bank. So at the end of the day, okay, we're all part of this modernization process, okay, and we cannot separate that. And hopefully, as you go to these offices, okay, we bring to the table everything we have. I mean, I'm an economist. There's no reason why, because I'm an emir, I should just basically unpack being an economist. I'm still interested in things like poverty alleviation. I'm still interested in economic empowerment. I'm interested in human development issues. And if we're going to use technology to help deal with malnutrition, to help deal with infant mortality, maternal mortality, we should use it. Okay, so that's, I think, just to layer something to what the OB has said. Now, on the question of the Constitution, and I'm going to speak for myself, and what I say is going to be probably not something that everybody agrees with among traditional rulers. Personally, I don't even support this whole move of putting us in the Constitution. You see, look, we already have a National Council of Traditional Rulers. Okay, we're able to, historically, Kano was never part of the East, and Obi of Onitsha was never part of the Sokoto Caliphate, okay? So we come out, and the Obi of Onitsha is the paramount leader among the Igbos, okay? I'm number 3 in the Sokoto Caliphate. As we come out, he's number 1 among his people. I defer to him. On the simple principle of equality of ethnic groups.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, if I see the I mean, the entire kingdom, what I call Ife, is no more than maybe 2 or 3 local governments in Kano today. But if he's a paramount leader of the Yorubas, you treat him the way and I'm number 3, because you give him that precedence. Nobody needs to tell me in the Constitution that if he is the number 1 among Igbo leaders, and I'm number 3 in Sokoto Caliphate, if you come to a place, you give him that respect and say, Obi, please go ahead. That is not something you write in the Constitution. It's something that's cultural. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
Now, when you begin to legislate these things, you remove that level of flexibility. Okay, because I said culture is dynamic. The relevance we have does not stem from the Constitution. To be honest, if politicians had their way, there'd be no emirs. There'd be no OBs, honestly. Okay? The reason we exist is because the people want us and people respect us. And so long as we remain committed to our people, so long as we remain interested in their welfare, so long as they see that we are concerned about them, okay with them, we'll remain relevant. Now, when you begin to write things into the Constitution, what do you write? So you say you write a national constitution, but it already exists. And you say, okay, you have a national constitutional rulers, and their duty is to advise the president. Do I need to be told that I should advise the president? Do I need the Constitution to tell me that if I think there's something that the country needs, I should go to the president and say, Mr. President, I think this is wrong? I don't need the Constitution. I don't need a Constitution to tell the governor that I think this is what we should be doing. I get that authority from being a leader of the people. Now, I know there are people who think that, oh, we need to have something in the Constitution. And then what is in the Constitution? That, oh, the traditional rulers are there to advise us. Fine. With or without.
You're doing that.
That's it. Okay. And we're not looking for power. I mean, we respect you have executive authority in the governor, you have legislative authority in the National Assembly. Times have moved. We used to make laws. Our predecessors used to make the laws. They used to be the judges. They had the courts. They had the police. They could arrest. They could jail. Times have moved. We've accepted that we're not going to go back. This is a democratic setting. We're not going to go back to those days of absolute monarchies. But the idea that you should have, and when you restrict that, it then becomes the institution becomes even more vulnerable because then it becomes easy to say, oh, you've gone outside the scope of what was written in the Constitution. So personally, maybe because I don't like being hemmed in by anyone, I don't want to be hemmed in. I want to have the freedom and the flexibility, okay, to go by my conscience. And do what I want to do, okay? And then define for myself what I want as a role. And I think, so that's my view. And now, it is not the view of all traditional rulers, but it's my view.
Totally, Your Highness, totally understood. I understand we have just about a minute or two. So, Your Highness, just your last take on this. Maybe a piggyback from what you said. Do you also stand by support his position, or you have a different position?
Well,
because the argument could also be the fact that we get worried about interference of political leaders in traditional affairs, and I'm sure everybody's familiar across board.
Yes, different strokes for different. The position he has is my position. But unfortunately, the movement is in a different direction. The movement is to institutionalize it, more to protect it, because now it's just free fall. Anything can happen anywhere. Kano is an example. But if you streamline what things can happen, what can't happen, that's the major part of it all. Then number two, if you don't put them in the Constitution, they say you have no right to give them money. So these are issues that have. But most people are moving towards the direction of have us in the Constitution. We have a rule, but most people say we know our rules. It's defined by us being there and by the people themselves. So these are the two views. But unfortunately, the tide has moved down towards the Constitution. And even at that moment, it's gone through the House, it's gone now to the Senate. So it's about
we must thank your Royal Highness and Majesty. Thank you so much. We wish we had more time, because we're planning to have other conversations.
No, we limited you.
You limited us to this conversation. But we tried as hard as we could. The Emir wanted to take us there, and I was very happy until time restricted us. But we must thank you. It was a very productive conversation, and I think we can all build on this for better days. I must thank you. His Royal Majesty Igwe Emeka Achebe is the Obi of Onitsha, who has got into the peak of his career in the oil and gas industry. The Emir of Kano, Alhaji Mohammed Sanusi II, His Royal Highness, thank you, sir. Economist, former central bank governor, now is trying to get a law degree. And I'm sure in the next few years that will happen. So congratulations in advance, sir. His Royal Highness Alhaji Dr. Haliru Ndanusi, the Emir of Shonga in Kwara State. Thank you, sir. Who is a medical doctor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you
we appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Right.
We enjoyed this conversation, and we hope to have another roundtable with more time to have these conversations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and, of course, your usual company. Don't forget, at the top of the hour is Sunrise Daily. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
We've come to the end of this royal edition of the Morning Brief. Stay with us right here on Channels Television, and don't forget the conversations we had. Goodbye.